Welcome back. This is That History Dude here with House FitzAlan. Now, House FitzAlan is the English branch of Clan Stewart. They both progenate from the same family. It's just that they settled in different countries. So they are all related. And if you've seen my Clan Stewart video, then the very beginning of this family tree will simply be a recap. So to get started, we move into Alan Stewart of Dol. Alan Stewart was the High Steward of Dol in Brittany. His son, Flaad FitzAlan, took over the family business and was High Steward for the King of Brittany. And then Alan FitzFlaad. Alan FitzFlaad, he was one of the Norman knights that went on campaign with William the Conqueror from Normandy to England, and his children are the ones who benefited from this endeavor. We have, starting obviously first with Walter FitzAlan, the first High Steward of Scotland. He benefited greatly from lands in Scotland, and eventually intermarrying with the Bruce family and becoming kings of Scotland themselves. So this is the Clan Stewart of Scotland that everyone is familiar with. You also had another brother, Jordan FitzAlan. Not much is known about him. And then you have Simon FitzAlan, who also settles in Scotland, has a son, Robert Boyd FitzSimon, and from him, that middle name Boyd, it becomes a surname, and it becomes Clan Boyd. So all the Boyds that you can think of probably originate from him. And now the main brother that we're going to be talking about in this video is William FitzAlan. He became Lord of Oswestry. He was given a barony in Sussex. His first marriage was to Isabel de Say, who died in 1199, and his second marriage was to Christiana, or as I say, Christian. Christian back then, 1,000 years ago, was a female name. I add the A just for the videos, so it's easier to pronounce, easier for all of you guys to understand that it is a female, Christiana. Together with the second marriage, William had two children, Christiana FitzAlan, who married Hugh Pantolf, the 4th Baron of Wem, and then he had a son, William FitzAlan, who officially became the first Lord of Oswestry and Clun, who died in 1210. Now, William married an unknown daughter, de Lacy, who was a daughter of Hugh de Lacy, the Lord of Meath, the 4th Baron Lacy. And together this union brought about 2 more sons. William FitzAlan, the second Lord of Oswestry and Clun, who died in 1215, only 5 years after his father died, and he had no children, did not marry, no heirs. And because of that, all the lands were inherited by John, his brother. John FitzAlan, who became the third Lord of Oswestry and Clun, who would later die 1240. Now, John FitzAlan married Isabel de Albigny, who is the daughter of William IV de Albigny, the third Earl of Arundel, and Mabel Kevliuk of Chester. This is where the Earldom of Arundel comes into play. William IV was the third Earl. Now, the Earldom would go on to his son, and who became the 4th Earl, William the 4th Earl. And then another son, Hugh, who became the 5th Earl, and both of them died childless. So the title of Earl of Arundel went to the 4th and to the 5th, and the next closest male heir was John II, the son of Isabel and John FitzAlan, the third Lord of Oswestry. John II FitzAlan, the 4th Lord of Oswestry and Clun, would inherit the Earldom of Arundel, but he would not be recognized with the title during his lifetime. So he held the lands, but was not recognized by the King of England. So he married Maud de Verdun, and he had 2 children. Joan FitzAlan, who was born about 1267, died 1316, and had John III FitzAlan, 5th Lord of Oswestry and Clun, who was born about 1246, died about 1272. And still, in this John's lifetime, he was still not recognized as the holder of the title of Earl of Arundel. Some more information. Joan married Sir Richard Plantagenet of Cornwall, who was actually an illegitimate child of Richard Plantagenet, the first Earl of Cornwall, but he was actually recognized later by his half-brother, Edmund. And meanwhile, John married Isabella Mortimer. And then it would be John's son, Sir Richard FitzAlan, who officially became the first Earl of Arundel. He was finally recognized to hold the title. He was born about 1267, died about 1302. He married Alicia de Saluzzo, who died about 1292. He had a sister, Maud FitzAlan, who married Philip Burnell. Now, Richard, being an earl, he was in a very, very good position. And usually, the title holders, the dukes, the earls, the barons, they have so many children. And Richard's not any different. So, starting with his daughter Alice FitzAlan, married Stephen de Seagrave, 3rd Lord Seagrave. Next daughter, Eleanor FitzAlan, who died about 1328, married Henry de Percy, 1st Baron Percy. born about 1273, died about 1314. Then we have Margaret FitzAlan, who married William Butler. He had a son, John FitzAlan, who actually became a priest. And then his actual heir, Edmund FitzAlan, was the second Earl of Arundel. Born about 1285, died about 1326. Married Alice de Warenne of Surrey. This is where the Earldom of Surrey comes into play. Alice de Warenne was the daughter of William de Warenne of Surrey and Joan de Vere. Her grandfather was the 6th Earl of Surrey. Her father predeceased her grandfather, and so the earldom went to her brother, John de Warenne, who became the 7th Earl of Surrey. He was born about 1286, died 1347. John de Warenne did not have any heirs, and there are no more male heirs in the family of de Warenne. So the next closest male heir would be the child of Edmund FitzAlan and Alice de Warenne, who would inherit the title of Surrey. And that came to a head when they had their children. They had Richard FitzAlan, who was the 3rd Earl of Arundel, but he also held the title of 8th Earl of Surrey. Born about 1313, died about 1376. I also had Michael FitzAlan, Edmund FitzAlan, who died about 1349, Mary FitzAlan, who died about 1396, who married John Lestrange, the 4th Baron of Blackmere. Elizabeth FitzAlan, who married William Lattimore, the 4th Baron Lattimore, born about 1330, died about 1381. Elaine FitzAlan, who died about 1386, who married Roger Lestrange, Baron of Knockin. Alice FitzAlan, who died about 1326, who married John de Bohun, 5th Earl of Hereford, born about 1306, died about 1336. Then Catherine FitzAlan, who married twice, married Andre Peveril, and then Henry Hussey, 2nd Baron Hussey. And then we have Eleanor FitzAlan, who died about 1347, and married Gerard de Lisle, 1st Baron Lisle. Now, to go back to the heir, Richard FitzAlan, the 3rd Earl of Arundel, and 8th Earl of Surrey. So he first married Isabel Le Despencer, who was born about 1312, died about 1374. Now, I'll read this quick info paragraph here about what was happening with Richard. A lot was happening with him and his father, Edmund. So, Edmund, the 2nd Earl of Arundel, refused to help in the Scottish campaigns with Edward II against Robert the Bruce in Scotland. This brought about tensions among the nobility, especially after the Scottish victory at Bannockburn in 1314, followed by famine, which led to a lot of criticism that arose about the king in England. The Despencer family were very close with King Edward, who bestowed much favor upon them, and even to Edmund, because Edmund's son married Isabella Despencer, so married into the family. Edmund was pardoned for refusing to hurry up and come to the campaigns in Scotland. The Spencer family had an ongoing feud with the Mortimer family. The Mortimers were exiled from England. They're living in France at this time. Queen Isabella, however, sought aid from the exiled Roger Mortimer. She was also kind of having an affair with him. Several people actually were having an affair with him. So, she sought aid from him in order to overthrow her husband and install her son, Edward III, on the throne. Now, in the rebellion that followed, Edmund was captured by the Mortimer forces and then executed with a blunt sword, allegedly taking 22 strikes to chop his head off. Richard, his son, tried to rebel against the crown to get his father's lands back. But because Edward III was actually a minor and was not actually in control himself, and Edward II was gone, Richard really didn't have anyone in court on his side. The Mortimers were all in Edward III's court, along with obviously his mother, Isabella. It was not a very favorable court for the FitzAlans. Richard went to live in France for the time being until Edward III came of age and actually kicked out the Mortimers again into exile, and he became his own man. He became his own king and allowed Richard FitzAlan to come back and take ownership of his lands and the earldoms that he lost and that his father lost. So he reclaimed his inheritance. I have here a portrait of Edmund and Hugh. Hugh Spencer the Elder, before Queen Isabella, the wife of Edward II, the one who betrayed her husband to install her son. Hugh Spencer the Elder is the grandfather of this Isabel. So, together, this was his first marriage, his first wife. They had a son, Sir Edmund FitzAlan, who was a knight, who died about 1381. And he married Sybil de Montague. Together they had 3 daughters, Catherine FitzAlan, Elizabeth FitzAlan, and Philippa FitzAlan. Catherine married Robert d'Eyncourt, Elizabeth married Sir Leonard Carew, and Philippa married Sir Richard Surgeau, who was a knight of Coquot. Now, because this first marriage became annulled, Sir Edmund was considered a bastard. Therefore, he could not inherit. So when Richard FitzAlan married a second time Eleanor Plantagenet of Lancaster, he married higher in his station. He married part of the royal family. This line would be the line to inherit their earldoms. And so, from this union, his second marriage, he had Thomas Arundel, who became the Archbishop of Canterbury and lived a pious life. He was also tutor to his sisters and brothers and to his nephews. He was born about 1353, died about 1414. Again, these two had Alice FitzAlan, who was born about 1350, died about 1416, who married Thomas Holland, the second Earl of Kent. They also had a Joan FitzAlan, who was born about 1347, died about 1419, who married Humphrey de Bohun, who was the seventh Earl of Hereford, born about 1342, died about 1373. And if that name sounds familiar, it's because if you follow this dotted black line, Humphrey here, the seventh Earl of Hereford, is the nephew of John de Bohun, here the fifth Earl of Hereford, who married Alice FitzAlan. Now, this union, I didn't dive into their family so much, but I did put the close connections of nephew and this Humphrey also, by the way, and Elizabeth de Bohun over here. They are brother and sister. So that is another connection. Very close relatives. And then we move on to this other son, John FitzAlan, who became the first Baron Arundel. Who was born about 1348, died about 1379, who married Eleanor Maltravers, the second Baroness of Maltravers, born about 1345, died about 1405. And then another son, Richard FitzAlan, the fourth Earl of Arundel and the ninth Earl of Surrey, who was born about 1346, died about 1397, who married first Elizabeth de Bohun of Northampton, born about 1350, died about 1385, and then married a second marriage, Philippa Mortimer March, and they had no children of that union. She was born about 1375, died about 1401. Now, by this generation of Richard and John and Joan and Alice and Thomas and Sir Edmund, this generation is about the time where the family starts to use Arundel as a surname. It is recorded that Thomas used it as his surname, Thomas Arundel, the Archbishop of Canterbury. It is also recorded John Arundel, the first Baron of Arundel. He used the name Arundel, the title Arundel, as his surname. Also, something I want to know is that John changed the heraldry for his title. Changed it from up here and changed it from the original. So this is the original. This is the original heraldry for House FitzAlan and the Earldom of Arundel. Okay. The red field with the yellow line. Now, it changed here. You have the red field, yellow lion, and the blue and yellow checkered. That comes from Surrey, from the Warren family. And then his son changes it to this yellow and black geometric pattern. This comes from the Maltravers because they inherited the barony of Maltravers as well. So I'm going to continue on with Richard here because his line eventually dies out, and then we jump back to John. So Elizabeth and Richard together in their union, they have several daughters and one son. Margaret FitzAlan, Eleanor FitzAlan, Elizabeth FitzAlan, Joan FitzAlan, and Alice FitzAlan. They all marry, husbands, and they have families themselves. I didn't go ahead and put that in this chart because I'm focusing on the FitzAlan family. But it's important to note that they all had families of their own. And then Thomas FitzAlan, who became the 5th Earl of Arundel and the 10th Earl of Surrey, who was born about 1381, died about 1415. He married Beatrice of Guise of Portugal, the illegitimate daughter of King John of Portugal. They, however, did not have any children together. There are no heirs at all from this union, and all the lands except for the Earldom of Arundel was distributed to his sisters and their families, and Arundel itself and the barony went to his cousin over here. So that is the end of this branch. As you can see where we are, we're about halfway through. So moving on to John FitzAlan, the first Baron Arundel. He married Eleanor Maltravers, the second Baroness Maltravers. She was the sole heiress of the barony of Maltravers, and John, obviously the Baron of Arundel. He brought the heraldry of both sides together and made this the cross line on a red background. And hers is obviously the yellow cross pattern with the black background. Together they had Joan FitzAlan, Sir William Arundel, who was actually Knight of the Garter, Margaret FitzAlan, Richard FitzAlan, and John FitzAlan, the second Baron of Arundel, who actually married another dispenser, Elizabeth Liv Spencer, who was the great niece of the other Isabel Liv Spencer that I mentioned earlier. Now, Richard FitzAlan here, he had a daughter, Joan FitzAlan, who married Thomas Willoughby of Parham. He was the grandson of this union up here, Alain FitzAlan and Roger Lestrange, the 5th Baron of Knockin. So that would make Thomas Willoughby and Joan FitzAlan second cousins once removed, because their ancestors, Richard FitzAlan and Alain, are siblings. So yes, that's another, fun fact. Then we have John FitzAlan, 2nd Baron Arundel, as I mentioned before, together with his union of Elizabeth. Together they had Thomas FitzAlan of Betchworth, who died 1430. And then you had John FitzAlan, the 6th Earl of Arundel, and 3rd Baron Maltravers. We have John FitzAlan, the 6th Earl of Arundel, 3rd Baron Maltravers, who married Eleanor Berkeley. And together they had 2 sons, John FitzAlan, the 7th Earl of Arundel, 4th Baron Maltravers, who married Maud Lovell. Together they had Humphrey FitzAlan, the 8th Earl of Arundel, 5th Baron Maltravers, who lived from 1429 to 1438. Now, obviously, he didn't live very long. He did not marry. He had no children, had no heirs. So their lands and titles went to his uncle, William FitzAlan, the 9th Earl of Arundel, 6th Baron Maltravers, who lived from 1417 to 1487. Here I have a picture of his burial tomb and his heraldry. He married Joan Novell, and together they had 5 children. John FitzAlan, who lived from about 1458 to 1533, Mary FitzAlan, William FitzAlan, George FitzAlan, and then finally Thomas FitzAlan, who was the heir and inherited the Earldom of Arundel, became the 10th Earl, and the 7th Baron Maltravers. He lived from about 1450 to 1524, and then married Margaret Woodville, who died 1492. And together they had 3 children: Edward FitzAlan, Margaret FitzAlan. Margaret FitzAlan married John de la Pole, the first Earl of Lincoln. He was heavily involved in the War of the Roses. And then you have William FitzAlan, the 11th Earl of Arundel and 8th Baron Maltravers. He lived about from 1476 to 1544. He married Anne Percy and had 1 son, Henry. This is his portrait. Henry FitzAlan became the 12th Earl of Arundel, 9th Baron Maltravers, lived from 1512 to 1580, and married Catherine Grey. Together they had 3 children. Mary FitzAlan lived from 1540 to 1557. Henry FitzAlan, who became Lord Maltravers, lived from 1538 to 1556, and then Jane FitzAlan lived from 1537 to 1576. Now, Henry died, obviously, with no heirs, no children. Mary and all of her children died. And Jane was the only surviving child who had surviving children, making her son, Philip, the closest male heir to Henry, the 12th Earl. So Philip Howard became the 13th Earl of Arundel. He was the son of Thomas Howard, the 4th Duke of Norfolk. And this is where the earldom leaves the FitzAlan family. And this is the end of the FitzAlan family tree. From what I could find from the available resources that I was able to gather. But the paternal line of FitzAlans ends here. Now, if any of you out there are FitzAlans or have a surname of Arundel, you may come from this family. So again, if you take a look at this expansive tree, the surname Arundel was beginning to be put into use around Richard and John's and Thomas's generations. Around over here, the 1300s, Arundel became a surname. Now, it was not exclusive. Some of them used Arundel as a surname. Some of them used FitzAlan as a surname. So, just a tidbit of information for any of you guys who may have Arundel as a surname or FitzAlan as a surname. You may come from this family. So I hope this tree helped with your own research, and maybe it's something fun to learn. I also put in here the barony of Arundel and the town of Arundel. And these are my social medias. That History Dude on YouTube, That History Dude on Facebook, and / Old MacDonald 91 on Reddit. So follow me, subscribe, watch my other videos. Thank you.